Welcome to the second event this week for Business New South Wales as it launches its We Mean Business election campaign. But more importantly, welcome to our Premier and for giving us the time. He's got an incredibly hectic schedule today, but every day. And it's great to have you here, Premier, and then we look forward to hearing some of the things you want to share with us today. I know you've got a few special announcements you want to make, and I won't steal your thunder on those. But certainly it's great and wonderful to have you here. I think 50 sleeps to go or thereabouts until election day. And I imagine they're going to be very full 24/7 days for you. But before I do that, can I acknowledge the wonderful ownership and history of this great land and waterways on which we're blessed to meet and live and play. This is Darug country. It's the home of the Barramadigal people. I shared a little insight yesterday about the Barramadigal clan, about the fact that Barramadigal actually stands for the place where the eels lie down. And I shared this yesterday, and I tried to join a link between that and Parramatta eels, of course, who seem to lie down every year when it comes to football series time. So probably well named, I would have thought. But can I set that aside and on your behalf acknowledge elders past, present and emerging? And I think we're all very blessed, and the more we appreciate and understand the gift that this land is to us and future generations, the better we'll all be in every shape or form. But anyway, it's a great welcome. Can I acknowledge some of your colleagues, Premier, if I can? My good friend David Elliott, probably goes without introduction in many forms or another, but gave me the greatest laugh of my life when I listened to his last speech in Parliament towards the end of last year. Minister, I think, Transport, Veterans and Western Sydney. It's wonderful to have you here. My dear mate Jeff Lee, where are you, Jeff? Up there, Minister for Corrections, but been a great member for Parramatta for many, many years, and it's great to have you here, Jeff. Mark Taylor is an MP member for Seven Hills, is here. Mark, Parliamentary Secretary for a few hats in infrastructure, cities, roads, transport, a busy man out at Seven Hills. Felicity Wilson, I saw come in as well, Felicity member for North Shore. A couple of really interesting roles for you on your Parliamentary Secretary work, working with Maddie Keane in Treasury, and but also COVID recovery, which is fantastic. I think Adam Crouch is also here. Adam, I saw you come in earlier. Member for the beautiful part of Australia, the Central Coast at Terrigal, and also Parliamentary Secretary for the Central Coast. And if I've missed any other dignity, Premier, you might pick them up, but they're the ones I'm aware of in the room. Nola Watson, the President of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and also a colleague of mine on the Business New South Wales Board. Judith Field, Fellow Director, and Warwick McLean are here as well. And of course, everyone in this room is a special guest of Business New South Wales and Business Sydney today as we continue to launch our election campaign. Premier, you know, and we share with you often in your team that we do quarterly business surveys of our members. We've just done an election campaign survey as well, and it gives us insights as to how we can share with you in an open and transparent way, and we really appreciate the way the door's been opened to your office and to yourself so that we can share some of those insights. I know we're short of time, so I'll just cut to the chase on a few issues that our members have really been talking to us about. And no one could have written the script that you've had to endure as a leader of our state over the last few years, whether it's been the change in premiership, pandemics, interest rates, inflation rates, insurance costs, and it goes on, job skills shortages, labour shortages. No one could have written that script, and it takes a bold and gutsy Premier and government to address those as you have you and your colleagues have done. But there are some emerging issues and ongoing issues, as you know, and a couple of those that have really stood to the fore have been around workers' compensation, the cost of insurance, the notion of increasing premiums and downsizing benefits is not working for business in New South Wales. And it's an area that we feel, in fundamental terms, and I shared it with Robbo yesterday, is broken in many forms, and it's something we really need to look at it in deep form. 43% of our members are talking about skills shortages, but they're talking about that in the context of availability and affordability of homes, no matter what part of the estate you're in, whether it's regional, rural or CBD. And there's a whole lot of initiatives we'd love to share with you around the whole housing crisis that continue to emerge. From a priorities perspective, obviously this group are here in business generally in New South Wales, and we represent circa 50,000 businesses in New South Wales. They don't want to see any more tax burden on business. And I note that some of the things you'll talk about today about future cost cutting and red tape removal and so on. And continuing to prosecute the case for payroll tax and the reduction from 5.45% to less than 5%, and raising the threshold to 1.3 million is something that's very important to business, particularly small to medium business. We represent the gamut of business, small, medium, micro, large, But that's an important threshold for small business, and I know that'll connect in a way with one of the announcements you'll make a little bit later. Skill shortage is a major issue, and we'd love to see the skills program, the visa skills program you have increased from 15,000 to 30,000. We really welcome the opportunity to talk to you about increasing your fee-free apprenticeships to 100,000, fee-free traineeships to 70,000. The $1.3 billion venture capital fund, and I note you're going to talk today about how you might enhance some of the operations around the future operations around business. But smart business in Australia, smart people in New South Wales exist, and our goal, working in partnership with you, is to give stability and certainty to smart business and to start-up business, and we think a venture capital fund will help that immensely. We'd love to see an audit and bring manufacturing and skills back into New South Wales and the Aerotropolis corridor particularly, but how do we do that? If we could do an audit of our capability and better understand what we can do around productivity and, again, smart initiatives in this state, would be really welcome. I know you're going to talk today about procurement, but the ability for government to feed more procurement opportunities into small and medium enterprise will be a game changer for business. Look, I won't go on because I know you've got a lot to address, but I can go for one more minute because you're still eating, so I can do that for one more minute for you, rather than send you up here with indigestion. We welcome the opportunity to partner with you, to talk to your team over the coming weeks as you continue to articulate policy. There's no greater need in our community at the moment, in our state, for the best leadership possible, the best political debate possible, and the best outcomes possible to preserve what has always been the best state to live, work and play in. And we believe we have that opportunity now to frame that debate and really get some solid outcomes in the next 50 days. We wish you well in the campaign, of course. And as they say, may the best team win, but we wish you well. I'm just going to show a quick video, Dom, before we start. So you've got 2 or 3 minutes to finish your lunch if you want. But this is reflective of the feedback of our members. But on behalf of this group, can I say how grateful we are to have you here? I hope you enjoy the outcomes of today's luncheon. Thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Ben Pike from Business New South Wales. For the past 3 days, I've been speaking to enterprises across our great state about some of the issues that are impacting them this election campaign. This is what they said.
I have had some experience with the skilled visas in the past. I have sponsored some hairdressers. Unfortunately, now I want to sponsor beauty therapists, but they're not on the skilled visa list. So that really limits us and limits our growth.
It's really important for the government to prioritise procurement for local businesses, for companies like Nextport, to allow us to adequately plan both our facilities and our staffing levels for the future.
Septo started in 2017 as 4 guys in a garage in Byron Bay with a huge idea and passion and desire to fix payments and bank account payments in particular. We've now grown today to processing $50 billion worth of payments. So a venture capital program that would be investing in New South Wales startups could really help others kind of have similar success stories to some of those big tech giants that we're seeing.
So payroll tax is a real disincentive to hire new staff. When we're looking at whether a role can be fulfilled through automation or through hiring a new employee, certainly that additional overhead is a factor. We'd like to employ more people. It's much more fun working with people than robots, but certainly the more we look at it, the more payroll is a factor in our decision making.
If the government were to expand the number of TAFE places in New South Wales, I expect to see a much higher quality of carpenters, electricians or tradesmen in general.
Higher taxes would impact us greatly. It would mean that we wouldn't be able to grow as quickly as we want or as much as we want. And I really wouldn't want to have to choose between paying taxes and hiring new staff.
Increasing the housing supply across the state, particularly in our area, if I could look at our own backyard, would be amazing. But across all breweries, they're all facing the same squeeze. The rental squeeze is real and it's affecting business.
New South Wales Government turned to AMP control in the COVID crisis, and we developed a ventilator and had it working in under 18 days for intensive care units. We can pivot very quickly to support New South Wales manufacturing needs. New South Wales Government, back New South Wales manufacturers, set up the ecosystem and get out of our way.
So, you've heard from businesses. Now over to you.
We mean business in New South Wales.
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 And we mean business in New South Wales.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I please ask you to be upstanding? And I want you to turn to the person to your left or right and say, "We mean business in New South Wales." Okay. Now you can sit. Now for those who don't know who I am, some might say that I'm the Greek version of George Clooney, but I'm not. I know for the many men out there, you'd want to be George Clooney, but I'm not. But I dared to be different. I dared to be different. Business New South Wales dared to be different. But more importantly, the Premier dares to be different. I've known the Premier for in excess of 15 years. And during that period of time, he has been a very passionate, dedicated, hardworking, committed, focused, motivated and determined individual. Friends, today we have the Premier here to announce a number of important measures that are going to be helping business in our community. His achievements while Treasurer and now as Premier speak for themselves. It's a great pleasure to see you all here today, and it's great that the Premier is here to speak to our membership, both here in Sydney, Western Sydney and across New South Wales. As the Executive Director of Business Sydney, during the time when we had the challenges of the pandemic, we've seen how the government here in New South Wales has managed the pandemic and has managed the way business can get on with business. The Premier, the support that your government has shown over the last few years has been critical to the survival of Sydney businesses and in New South Wales, and we thank you for your leadership. Irrespective of the result on the 25th of March, you will be known for your courageous leadership during the pandemic. You led the nation in pushing for the reopening of the economy. You, above all, recognised that we couldn't stay bunkered down and fearful as a society. Businesses and jobs depended on allowing the economy to recover. Premier, you showed true leadership, which won't be forgotten. We Mean Business campaign, we're here to put the ambitions of our members front and centre in this election. And I can tell you we have a comprehensive list of priorities for New South Wales businesses that we look forward to highlight over the next few weeks during this campaign. Businesses in New South Wales need certainty and stability, but we also want to see ambition and imagination from the next generation that puts Sydney and New South Wales on the world stage. We live in the best destination in the world, and we want for a place to live, work and play. I would like to now invite the New South Wales Premier, Dominic Perrottet, to the stage to outline the New South Wales Government's priorities for New South Wales businesses this election. Please put your hands together and welcome the Premier.
Thank you, Paul, for that kind introduction, and to Lyle and the entire team at Business New South Wales. Can I begin by thanking you? Because one thing in my role over what's been a few difficult years for our state, it has been the engagement that I've had with Business New South Wales that has been able to develop policies to help all our businesses across our state get through whether it was fires and floods, a pandemic and floods again. And during those dark days of the pandemic, it was the engagement, the constant engagement with Business New South Wales and the business community where we tailored many packages, provided as much support as we could. And from my perspective during that period, we could never have achieved what we have as a state, but for the support, the advice and the assistance that you provided me during that time as Treasurer. So thank you to all of you and the great work that you do. And thank you for the support that you'll be providing the Liberals and Nationals at the next election. So can I acknowledge my ministerial colleagues and members of Parliament who are here today, Peter Collins as well, who is here, and for your support. It's great to be part of the Business New South Wales campaign launch this week. The campaign has begun for an election where economic and financial management will be more important than any election since 2011. This week, the IMF was the latest body to downgrade its forecast for global economic growth over the next 2 years. For Australia, both the IMF and the OECD have revised down their forecasts for growth. It's just the latest confirmation that we are living in very challenging economic times. Inflation is biting, interest rates are rising. Around half of all fixed interest loans, as we know, will expire this year, and then those interest rates will bite even more. The Russia-Ukraine war means energy costs are biting, and if you look at many of the indicators, volatile bond yields and stock markets downgrades of economic growth forecasts show that there is a lot of uncertainty. And in many ways, certainty is now what it's all about. That's how households can plan for the future. That's how businesses can plan for the future. And that's how governments can plan for the future as well. The risk of recession is real. Our state and our nation need a plan to recession-proof our economy. And that is what I want to talk to each of you about today, our plan to recession-proof the New South Wales economy and give the people and the businesses of our great state certainty for the future. Now, despite the challenges, there are clear signs of underlying strength in our state. Our economy has grown by 11.1% throughout the year. That's more than any other state in the country. We've contributed around half the entire nation's domestic final demand over the last 12 months. ANZ's Statometer ranks us as the nation's leading state economy. We have the strongest business conditions for the state's 860,000 businesses. Unemployment is lower than in any other state, and this year it fell to its lowest rate on record. Participation is at record highs, particularly for women. We're the only state in the country with 2 AAA credit ratings, the gold standard of economic and financial management. Business confidence and consumer sentiment are above the national average. Private capital expenditure growth is leading the nation. Now, these are the vital statistics of the largest economy in the nation, and they are healthy. And that is important for Australia, right across the board, for the challenges that lie ahead. Now, the foundations are strong, even off the back of the biggest health and economic crisis we've faced in generations. And on top of that, the most devastating floods in 100 years. I don't need to remind anyone here about how dire and uncertain things were at the height of the pandemic. And yet, despite the entire global economy grinding to a halt, the New South Wales economy is now 3.8% larger than it was before COVID. Despite more than 270,000 people losing their jobs during the pandemic, we've restored every single one of them and added 218,000 more. That's like adding half of the South Australia's workforce in less than 2 years. Nothing against Adelaide. And despite, they're trying. And despite deploying a $53 billion health and economic response to the pandemic and over $6 billion in response to the floods with the Commonwealth, we've still retained our 2 AAA ratings. Hopefully, that gives you some indication of how deep our capacity was to respond to the biggest shock in decades. Now, something like that doesn't happen by accident. In New South Wales, it happened for 2 reasons. First of all, because of how we reacted. While other states were in a race to shut everything down, we were determined to stay as open as possible for as long as possible, and we did. We recognised the importance of keeping businesses and their workers connected, and that is where we targeted our support. We got rid of as many taxes, charges, and fees as possible while incomes and revenues across the board were taking a hit. And when the pandemic forced us to change the way that we live and work, we looked at all the regulations and said, let's do things differently. Wherever we could change the rules so that people and businesses could keep going, we did. Opening hours, outdoor dining, long service leave flexibility, electronic meetings and voting for boards and strata schemes, 24-hour supply chain operations, allowing home businesses to run 24 hours a day and employ staff, digital execution and certification of conveyancing documents, remote witnessing of signatures. So much of this stuff was radical and opposed at the time, but now it just makes sense. We made these changes and the world didn't fall apart. In fact, it just got better and it helped us get through those times. The key to all of these changes, as I said at the outset, was engagement. As Treasurer, my team and I worked around the clock. Every day, things were changing. New challenges were emerging and new solutions had to be found. But every day, I had the great opportunity to work with all of you, the businesses that drive our state's success. I want to particularly thank the Small Business Commissioner, Chris Lamont, for his hard work over the last few years to help match government support with the needs of the business community. Together, we found a way to keep going. We bounced ideas around, we were open about the problems and our capacity to solve them. We negotiated and collaborated and not just focused on fixing things. And it was amazing to see how productive we can be when we have to be. For me, it was a silver lining because I've always hated the way that politics was about conflict and bureaucracy, getting bogged down in the day-to-day. I prefer tackling things head-on and focusing on the outcome because we have limited time in these jobs to make a difference. And life is too short to let politics get in the way of progress. We made huge progress in the pandemic because we had to, and I've hung on to that attitude as Premier. But there is a second reason that we came out of the pandemic with the foundations so strong. It's because we built them strong in the first place. You can only mount a strong response in hard times if you've built up the strength and the resources in the good times. When the pandemic hit our shores, 8 years of strong Liberal economic and fiscal management meant New South Wales, compared to any other state, was in the best place to respond. We had taken over a budget in deficit and delivered 6 surpluses totaling over $20 billion. We delivered negative net debt 4 years in a row and got it down to negative $10 billion in 2019. And we did it all the while delivering 31 tax cuts totaling $10.5 billion, including 10 reductions in payroll tax totaling over $5 billion, and completely removing payroll tax obligations for thousands of businesses. We did it while making record investments in critical services like health. And when the pandemic hit, that meant we had the strongest health system in the nation. It was there when our people needed it most. And we did it at the same time as delivering an unprecedented $178 billion in critical infrastructure, the framework of our future economic growth. Even in the good times, we were governing for the long term, and that discipline turned out to be a lifesaver in the crisis. The fiscal buffer that we built up has meant we could provide $23 billion in support for businesses and the economy during the pandemic. Over $7 billion in JobSaver payments, over $4 billion in payroll tax relief, $4 billion in small business grants, Dine and Discover vouchers that delivered around $1 billion in total spending at participating businesses, and $207 million in small business rebates for fees and charges. If we had taken the reckless, complacent, or been lazy in the years before the pandemic, that kind of support that we're able to provide would not have been possible. Thousands of more businesses would have gone under, and tens of thousands more people would have been out of work. There is an important contrast to draw here. We ran surpluses when revenues were strong. And in the past, our predecessors also ran modest surpluses. But to do it, they had to close over 90 schools across our state. They had to put infrastructure on hold. And the only thing they ended up building was a $30 billion infrastructure backlog. They had to increase taxes. During their last term of government, New South Wales Labor introduced 11 new taxes and increased taxes 21 times. At the last election, they promised a further 10 new taxes. And the surpluses that they projected at the 2019 election relied on cancelling the cuts of payroll tax that we had announced. Now that was before any crisis had hit. And yet, even in the good times, they were already looking at the business community in New South Wales as a cash cow. If that was their idea of financial management then, just imagine how it will look like now when we have to do the serious work of post-pandemic budget repair in a climate of economic uncertainty. There are no prizes for guessing who ends up paying Labor's tax bill. Nothing makes this contrast clearer than the public sector wages policy. We have the nation's biggest public service, and we want them all to be paid well. Over our time in office, we have delivered steady increases that outpaced inflation over time and outpaced private sector wage growth. It's a good deal, it's a fair deal, and importantly, it's sustainable because we kept a cap in place to make sure the bill for taxpayers could not get out of hand. This is important because employee expenses account for around 40% of all state government expenses, $200 billion over the next 4 years, just employee-related expenses alone. Our cap has made it possible to keep that expense growth under control. Today, our opponents are pledging to scrap the cap on that $200 billion bill. They've even criticised us, saying any pay rises less than inflation is a wage cut. And with inflation running at around 8%, I don't think anyone here needs me to connect the dots. Now imagine if the number crunchers in your business came to you with a plan that said they've decided to not put any limit on expense growth over the next 4 years. And on top of that, they're going around promising your people that everyone's salaries will go up, but they're not actually making any provision for it in the budget. Let me suggest if your finance team came to you with a plan, they wouldn't be part of your team for very long. And if they said it in a job interview, it wouldn't be a very long interview at all. It doesn't make sense in a business, and it doesn't make sense in the budget, and it doesn't make sense for the New South Wales government. Let past performance be your guide. Last time Labor was in power, public sector expenses blew out catastrophically. To pay for it, they had to cut all the other things that governments are supposed to deliver. And that's why nothing got built. It wasn't through a lack of intention. It was because they simply didn't have the means. It's why services were closed. It's why taxes inevitably went up. It's why New South Wales Labor presided over both the lowest economic growth and the lowest jobs growth across the nation over their last decade in power. Now, this is incredibly important when right now the future that we are facing as a state and as a country is uncertain. Our commitment is to give you certainty. We will do this by keeping the foundation strong, like we always have. We don't claim to be perfect, but our track record and what that shows is discipline. Our infrastructure pipeline is locked in, budgeted, and already underway. $112 billion and more to be announced, making sure New South Wales keeps growing well and doesn't fall behind. We will keep spending in check with a cap on expenses that is fair to public servants and fair to taxpayers too. We will keep taxes low as we always have. And today I can announce we will deliver a $1 billion red tape reduction plan to give small and medium businesses a boost by cutting the cost of doing business in this state. We will appoint Peter Arkestrat as the New South Wales Red Tape Commissioner, responsible and accountable for delivering the target, removing red tape, and delivering productivity improvements. We will establish a series of industry task forces, starting with the local government small business task force, to cut red tape and speed up application and approval times. The Red Tape Commissioner and the Small Business Commissioner will be on it, and Business New South Wales will also have a seat at the table. We will digitise more than 200 processes across 70 pieces of legislation to eliminate paperwork and unlock your valuable time. And we will implement a one-for-one regulation rule so that every new regulation, one will have to be cut at the same time. Productivity is the key to the next phase of our growth here in this state. And this is a practical, tangible attack on red tape in New South Wales to reduce the time and the cost of doing business. Today, I can also announce we will use the economic and fiscal power of government to help small and medium businesses in New South Wales grow. We will increase our procurement requirements from $8 billion to $10 billion over the next term of government, injecting an extra $2 billion into local businesses every single year. And our Start and Scale program will allow small and micro businesses to grow and new businesses to start, with $1,000 towards business advice. Together, these practical yet tangible actions will support our commitment to grow the small business sector in New South Wales to 1 million businesses by 2030. That is our plan to secure the strong foundations that can help you stand firm through the uncertain times ahead. But as you've no doubt already picked up, we're not just focused on the short term. We're working on a long-term plan, not for the next election, but for the next generation. It's a plan for future jobs and industries like advanced manufacturing, aerospace, defence, agribusiness, green hydrogen, the industries where the high-value jobs of the future will be. We have the long-term plan for critical infrastructure with dedicated precincts in our regions and a new economic powerhouse in our west with the Aerotropolis. It's a long-term plan to grow our workforce with better opportunities for women and families through our $5 billion childcare and economic opportunity fund. And it's the plan for training and education to match the skills young people are learning with the skills our economy needs. We're supporting 120,000 fee-free TAFE positions and our landmark institutes of applied technology offering a new education model for the future, bringing together universities, vet training and industry. Now, I'm told that yesterday, the opposition Treasury spokesperson used his platform here to query why a government that has been elected and re-elected over a period of 12 years still needs a long-term economic plan. My question is, how could you make a credible case to manage the largest, most complex economy in the nation and not have a serious plan for the future? When we came to office in 2011, we had a long-term plan to restore the finances, to modernise services and rebuild our great state. Only a few months ago, we opened this century's most significant road project in the state, the M4-M8 tunnels as part of WestConnex. That project was part of our plan as a first-term government, but getting it done required far-sighted planning and vision and Labor's opposition. Without that foresight, the important things don't get done. New South Wales learned that lesson the hard way in the years leading up to 2011. Now, we need that foresight today just as much as ever. Our vision for the New South Wales economy is ambitious and optimistic. I want to create opportunities for our children and grandchildren that are even better than the opportunities that we have today. But I understand, and my government understands, that good intentions don't pay the bills. Promising to scrap the public sector expense cap, but failing to explain how much it will cost and what they'll cut and who they'll tax to pay for it is not good enough. It's a recipe for runaway costs, deep cuts, tax hikes, all delivered with reluctance and regret and the benefit of hindsight. From my own experience handing down 5 budgets here in our state and getting through the pandemic as Treasurer, I know New South Wales doesn't need hindsight. It needs a vision for the future. And given the uncertain outlook today, it comes down to a simple question. Who do you trust to take our state forward? Who do you trust to offer the certainty you need to plan for your future, whether that's for your family, for your children, for your business, for your investment partners, for your employees, or for your customers? New South Wales needs strong foundations, a clear plan for what comes next, and the experience and the leadership to deliver it. We cannot afford, at this moment, to stall or go backwards. I lead a government that will continue to work with each of you to keep us moving confidently into the future. Thank you.
Coming through? It is now? Excellent. Thank you very much, Premier. We've got very short time scale. My team are telling me we've got photos, we've got to get you to your car, and we've got to have a full set of Q&A covering all the points you made there in the next 2 minutes, but we'll give it a good go.
Sorry, National Cabinet's on.
But thank you. As has been said before, thank you so much for your support of business through the pandemic. Thank you to you, Matt, Felicity, and others who did so much for our business through those dark days, and it's not forgotten by us or our communities. But right here, right now, thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing those announcements with you. Thank you for supporting business in the run-up to this election, and thank you as well for taking up on some of our suggestions in your speech just then. That is also very much appreciated by our members who suggested some of the measures that you've put up there now. So thank you for listening. As far as the red tape's concerned, you and I have been on that journey before. We've been around New South Wales and spoken to our members, I think, during COVID. We were looking at red tape together back then, and planning was at the top of the list there. I think our members were kind of saying if we can sort planning out 80% of the red tape, will probably be dealt with at a practical level. I'd just like to back that one in. Given time, we probably don't need a response, but I think we do know that planning is
planning's at the top of the list.
Top of the list, excellent. And I think as well, the million small businesses. Lyle here has got a target on my back for 1 million members, so let's work on that together.
That'll help.
Yeah, excellent. Look, we have 4 horses.
Should make mandatory membership of Business New South Wales, a bit like the unions. How would that go?
Let's take that one offline. So at the moment, though, I mean, things aren't great. We've just surveyed 900 of our members, and 700 of them actually wrote back. They took the time to write back. Some of the words were not repeatable, but the 4 issues that came right to the front, and we're calling the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse: energy costs, insurance costs, payroll tax, and lack of affordability of housing and availability of housing. In the few minutes that you've got, how would you like to make your pitch to our 900 members who responded to that survey and say those 4 issues right here, right now, are top of your agenda, and what would a returned Perrottet government do to reduce those costs on business now?
Well, the first thing I'd say to your members is you should have confidence. You should have confidence. The 5 years I spent as Treasurer, during some of the darkest days, there was no doubt there was a lack of confidence, consumer confidence, business confidence, investment confidence. And what happened? We found a way and we all got through. So the first point I'd make is have confidence, because my government will always back you in and support you. When it comes to payroll tax, when I became Treasurer, the payroll tax threshold was around 700,000. I increased it over the time in every budget to 1.2 million. That's thousands of businesses across our state no longer paying payroll tax at all and not qualifying for it. Average savings for many businesses around $28,000 per year. Where we can do more, we will. Getting government out of the way and reducing those taxes, it's not just paying the payroll tax, it's the administration costs that go with payroll tax as well. So every business across our state who is not paying payroll tax, the better. That's what I've been focused on over the last 5 years, and will continue to do that moving forward. Energy costs, major issue, national global problem. The treasurers right across the country are working on that plan right now, and we'll be releasing that shortly as part of the National Cabinet decision to provide greater relief in the short term. But it's not just the short term as well. It's making sure we have the long-term plan when it comes to energy costs in the future. We have our energy roadmap that delivers on that. We're getting the Narrabri gas project up as soon as possible. Made it very clear to Santos and very clear to the planning department. We need that done. We've got to secure our energy future going forward whilst dealing with the short-term challenges of today. Insurance costs, no doubt a big challenge. I've seen that firsthand right across the board. Insurance costs are going up as well off the back of some of the natural disasters that we faced in bushfires and floods. And I'll work with, I think this is something from a national cabinet level that I've been working through and leading on, of how we can work with insurance companies to help drive down those costs after there's been obviously a significant claim on premiums across our state. The fourth one, I think, was housing. In relation to housing, well, we're opening up more supply. Driving construction here in our state, it's a particular issue in regional New South Wales in lack of housing available. But we can't have an Australia that can't house its children, and that's why I'm completely focused on providing opportunities for essential workers here in our state, and childcare workers and frontline public servants in nursing and teaching and police to access our shared equity scheme, and our stamp duty reforms, which ensures that young people don't have to pay that upfront stamp duty that sets them back years of saving, and rather give them the choice of paying that smaller annual amount. We passed that through the Parliament. It's now in place, and thousands of people across our state are taking it up. And we're also working with the federal government on their social and affordable housing plan. So there's a suite of measures we're looking at it. It's not one policy is going to fix these challenges, but rest assured, past performance is the best indicator of future performance, and that's what you'll get from us.
Thank you, Premier. Look, in this booklet here, there's a whole load of suggestions which may help your thoughts over the next few weeks on those 4 issues. Right here, right now, return government, first 100 days, would you do a manufacturing audit of what we need to build here rather than what we want to build here?
Well, when it comes to manufacturing exports, New South Wales is the largest in the nation. Now, that might make you sound surprised because of the Rust Belt state of Victoria, but we outpace them. Now, I've appointed a modern manufacturing commissioner here in our state, advising the government, advising the Treasurer and myself on what are the areas of investment and future jobs. New South Wales Labor talks about old manufacturing. That's the old way for political purposes. I'm focused on making sure that our kids have the best start to life and the best educational opportunities in the future industries, in advanced manufacturing. We are a smart state, unlike the other ones. We are a smart state, and education is crucial, and we're doing that right now, having our university sector. I see Barney's here. I gained a much greater appreciation of the university sector, and it's important to the state government during the pandemic. We shouldn't see the university sector as something in the federal sphere, it's in the state sphere. Having the university sector partner with the high school system in terms of where do we look at changes in the curriculum to make sure our kids have that best educational opportunity, and partnering with TAFE through our Institute of Applied Technology. This is the way of the future that we're delivering here in New South Wales. So New South Wales Labor want us to take us back to old manufacturing. I'll back in new manufacturing, because that's where the future jobs are for our children and their children. And we've set that up in New South Wales to provide us that advice, provide incentives for the establishment of many of those businesses around the world. And the Aerotropolis and places right around New South Wales are going to be great areas which will provide that opportunity and prosperity for generations to come.
Thank you, Premier. We are out of time. I know there are hundreds more questions out there on these important issues.
Just email them through.
We'll have you back.
Elliot's here. He'll take them all.
We'll have you back. But thank you very much, Premier. You've got to go and catch a plane or catch a train. And we just want to have a quick photo before you go. The vote of thanks, unfortunately, you'll miss because you've got to fly, but it will be a cracker. Enjoy the rest of your busy day. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for the announcements, and good luck over the next few weeks.
Thanks, everyone.